almost 5 years ago to this day, I reached out to a gentleman on Kickstarter that was putting out an RPG that looked very similar to a very popular movie that I'm a big fan of. Has to do with giant mechs battling giant monsters. That, of course, was Mechas and Monsters by Gallant Knight Games. And the gentleman was Alan Bahr. Little did he know, 5 years later, he'd still be on the show. And then Alan made the announcement that Mechas and Monsters Evolved was going to be coming to Kickstarter. So I'm going to tell folks that if you're interested in Mechas and Monsters Evolved, check out the link in the description. There's the link to the Kickstarter previews down there. You can hit the follow, and you'll be notified as soon as it goes live. That's my intro. Earlier today, when we were lining you up to come on the show, I'm like, how long has it been since Alan first came on VCG and ran Mechas and Monsters? Because at that point, I really didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, I'm glad you went there because I was about to.
Let's give Doug some credit. The professional quality of the show has improved, though the quality of guests have not.
Oh, okay.
Because if you look at that video, if you watch that video, it's like me and my brother and like 3 friends were huddled around this table playing Mechas and Monsters, like, and Alan
with the camera all the way back here.
Like, no, that was quite. And for some reason, Alan decided he wanted to come back after that, and it's been. I greatly appreciate you, giving me the benefit of the doubt and hanging with us while we've gone through growing pains and become this show that we've become, and it kind of all started. It's all started there, and it was actually like September 14th you came on the show and ran Mechas and Monsters. I can't remember when the Kickstarter actually started, but I remember seeing it launch on Kickstarter, and I'm like, oh man, this art is amazing. This is totally my jam. Like I of course I love Pacific Rim anyway, and I sent you an email or sent you a message via Kickstarter, and you said, I don't know who you are, stop harassing me, I'm going to get my lawyers involved.
So I actually have that original message still in my Kickstarter account.
Do you really?
Yeah,
I probably do too.
Yeah, they archive it all. But yeah, so we ran the Kickstarter about 5 years ago. It was in the fall of 2016, and the game came out in early 2017. And yeah, it's our oldest game that hasn't been updated yet. So it's getting an update. It was our second game. We were funding it with the meager profits of our first Kickstarter, so we definitely rolled into it with some things that I've learned now that I want to fix, and so we're going to do that.
What are the major things that you wanted to fix with this game? I mean, it's a great game all by itself. Conventions I carry Tiny Dungeon and Mechas and Tiny Frontiers Mechas and Monsters, and I'll tell you what, as many copies as we sell, Tiny Dungeon, we still sell quite a few copies of Mechas and Monsters. So there is a really, really great game there. So I'm like, wow, if it's going to evolve and even improve, it's going to be even a greiter product.
So a lot of the changes are what I would call quality of life changes. Since 4 years ago when it came out, we've released something like 100 and something products. We've gotten a lot better at this. I've learned a lot more. And so as part of that, it's good every once in a while to go back and take those lessons we've learned and apply them to what we've got that could use the updates. So on a basic level, a lot of it is bringing the game in line with the current iteration of Tiny D6. At the time, we had moved it a little bit from where Tiny Frontiers was, and now we've kind of unified Tiny D6 a little bit more with a stronger, I'll call it a backbone, a stronger consistency between the game lines. And I want to bring Mechas and Monsters onto that. So a lot of that is just unifying language, clearing up some poorly worded rules, interactions, little things like that. We've tripled the amount of art roughly. We hit. I mean, we use the same artist, so we're keeping the original pieces because they're the same high quality level as the new art. But we've got all new art and all new cover. You know, we've gotten a lot better at art direction and things like that. So the art's a lot more dynamic or interesting. It's a lot more evocative, I think. And then, you know, we've added, and this is my favorite thing we've added, we actually added a campaign to the game. And it's a two-part, I'm going to call it 2 parts, but it's not 2 parts in a like a first act, second act fashion. It's 2 parts in a, you can play the mechas or you can play the kaiju. And you can play both sides with 2 groups against each other, and they could never know. And so these campaigns proceed simultaneously, and it's got this really great macro level game where, you know, as the mecha, you're managing the ship, as the kaiju, you're defending the planet, and there's some really great mechanics for all that in there. It's a super great campaign. Sen Fung Lim and Banana Chan actually wrote it for us as part of this Kickstarter. So that's going to be in the core book, and that's like a 30,000 word campaign. That's like the size of the rules and then some. So it's a significant portion of the book.
Now, are the micro settings that you had in the original book, are those being brought over into this?
No, we're doing all the ones, but we're only doing a few. We're doing about 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
So they're about double in length, though. We're actually going to double them from where they were in the original book, and then we're going to, you know, kind of have a few less and kind of tighten them down a little bit. So
this is going to be a much larger book.
In the end, it'll probably be roughly the same size.
Oh, okay.
We've actually trimmed down the word count by cutting some of those micro settings, but by adding the campaign and more art, we've actually managed to probably maintain the page ratio. It's still going through editing. It hasn't been laid out yet, so, you know, don't quote me on that, but we're doing our best. But I imagine it'll come out around 200 pages.
Wow. That's a good sized book. The cover art, is that going to be about the same as what it was previously? Or are you kind of updating the whole cover? Are you updating the whole thing?
Would you like to see the new cover art?
I would. I mean, gentlemen, would you like to see the new cover art?
Nah. I have no problem. Look, what did you say, Ben?
Nope.
So let me.
So Ben is no longer associated with this podcast. I just want to.
So
I want to see the art.
Can you see it? Boom.
Wow.
That'll be the new cover art.
That is badass.
By Tanho Sim, who did all the art inside the book as well.
When I first found out about this, because I remember I told you, like, I came into this after this released. When I first saw the art for this, my first thought was Pacific Rim, and then I started reading the book, and I was like, I like the different takes on it inside. Like, there's different options here. It doesn't have to just be Pacific Rim, and that really sucked me in.
Rodrigo says, I hope it gets published in Brazil.
Well, the PDF will be available everywhere, obviously, as well as print on demand on Director RPG. But, you know, with this campaign, stop sharing that. With this campaign, we're actually, with the shipping situation in the world, we're actually going to be restricting the offset books to US only, unless something changes dramatically in the next few weeks, probably. And anybody who's international will have to back for a POD code, unfortunately. But, you know, it's just too difficult.
Yeah, it's tough right now.
It's functionally impossible.
Yeah.
I mentioned that to the guys earlier in our side chat that we always have on Facebook. I'm starting to see more and more Kickstarters now as they come out. Things that I've been interested in backing are like, sorry, no international shipping. We're just not doing it.
It's too hard.
Yeah, it's just too much of a nightmare now.
In 5 years, this is the first Kickstarter we've ever had to restrict that on. We're gonna. I mean, the shipping Tiny Cthulhu, you know, it goes late because of the pandemic and everything, and we basically didn't make any money on it because we ended up losing it all in shipping easy, and then some problem.
Do you have like like as a publisher and as a designer, do you have like just something in the back of your mind that says, you know what, I really want to go back and revisit this game after so many years just to make sure that it's on par with where I want it to be?
So kind of.
Okay.
With something like Tiny D6, this is a little different.
Yeah.
Because since they're all based on the same rules chassis, when we make a big update to the rules chassis, it's good to go back and update the games. And this, sometimes we can do that with just a PDF fix, and, you know, and a new print on demand or something. In the case of Mechas and Monsters, though, we had already written it kind of divergent from Tiny D6. So as Tiny D6 has evolved, it's become farther and farther because we started here and we're like, we're going to put it over here, and then so it's going in a straight line. But Tiny D6 is kind of doing this, and so we've diverged farther and farther. So this is partially the new edition. Is there's a significant reworking of the text in terms of not what's included, but in how the book communicates mechanically to be unified with, especially the later stuff like Tiny Cthulhu or Tiny Supers. So part of that was just looking at that and going, okay, this game is the most divergent. It's the one that needs to be kind of pulled back in to the fold, so to speak.
Right.
Part of it was, at the time we could only afford like 10 pieces of art for the whole book. Like the art was expensive. We were a small press. We're still a small press, but now we're at a place where we can, afford 20 to 25 pieces for the book. We've been able to double and then some, which has been fantastic and really great. So part of it was that, just like a quality of life, like the book will look better.
Sure.
Part of it is we've gotten better at printing books, so the offset print's going to be a lot nicer than it would have been, 5 years ago. Stuff like that, there's these little things, and they kind of all add up.
Okay.
And being, totally cynical, part of it's sales. We look at the sales and we go, okay, is it selling well? Okay, well, sometimes a new edition can goose that. Sometimes it's not going to matter, right?
Right.
And that's never the deciding factor. We don't just make a new edition to make money. Because one, that's a really silly idea. And it could totally backfire on you. It would be a lie to say that's not a thing we think about, but I would say at best it's only ever a tiebreaker in sort of the decision-making process. It would never be a major contributing factor, if that makes sense.
Sure, that makes sense.
And part of it is, now we have big distribution. We have better distribution. I wouldn't say big, but we're bigger than we were. We didn't even have retail distribution when this came out originally.
Right.
So it never went into retail. It was already, by the time we had retail distribution, it was 2 years in our back catalog, and it wasn't worth printing 100 copies even to put into retail because it would have sold really slowly. This is kind of a chance to do all of that with the new stuff we've learned, and it all adds up. And as you're thinking about it, you kind of you're taking it all in. And part of it is I'm a lot better rules writer and designer than I was 5 years ago, and I want to play that.
Rodrigo has a question in the chat. He says, "Did the players' feedback influence these changes?"
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I could say no to that. In any way, it's so much better because people talk about it and have given us feedback. On our Patreons, for our Patreon on Gallant Knight Games, patreon.com/Gallant Knight Games. They've seen multiple drafts. They've given me multiple feedback. Some of it we've included, some of it we haven't, unfortunately. And part of that is, my decision as I'm working on the game, what I want it to be versus, what somebody wants in a game is just one person. And to a degree, I'm trying to design for everybody. So not every suggestion is good for the game, right?
Right.
Some suggestions are only good for your table. And it's hard to know where that is. And I've gotten a lot better at it over the years of knowing that line. And with Tiny D6, because I write so much of it, I've gotten to an almost, I'll call it a gut checkpoint where I can look at something and go yes or no, almost instinctively, because I've spent so much time inside the design space that I know it that well. And sometimes I'm wrong. So it's never a perfect system. But yes, feedback from players and Patreons and everybody who's streamed it, ran it, it's something we're always listening to and looking at, and it's been really helpful.
Do you have any idea, like when this Kickstarter is going to approximately go live for folks that might be interested in
mid-September?
Mid-September.
Yep, you can sign up now to get notified at the link Doug put down in the description below. Click like and subscribe, and then click the link, and then like and subscribe to the Kickstarter page.
Absolutely.
See what I did there for you? I got this. I could do Doug's job. Whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, anybody can do my job. Come on, Alan. Let's be honest.
But yeah, so we're aiming for mid-September. We're currently in the middle of finalizing some shipping information we want to get squared away, and it's taking a little longer. But the Kickstarter page is done. The book is functionally written. We're just waiting on a few of the micro setting stretch goals we want to include.
Rodrigo asks, is it possible that in the future we see a Tiny D6 general handbook? That's a good question. Like,
I get that question a lot.
Since you have so many Tiny D6 games.
No,
you're not going to do it. You're not going to do a general handbook, huh?
I have no intentions of doing that. I find the genre books to be stronger in that they are focused, they work better. There's less effort to make the game adapt to all these different edge cases that intersect. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If I were to cram Frontiers and Supers and Wastelands and Dungeon all into one book, I would have to talk about how the Supers rules intersect with all those books and all these edge cases. I would have to talk about the Starship, right? And all of a sudden you've created this mess. And I think the ecosystem for the game benefits from each genre book being super focused because it lets you kind of ignore those edge cases that, like, honestly, so few people are going to match those up that making me design for them is almost a waste of time, right?
True.
Like the GM is going to house rule those at their table because it's such a small percentage of the need, right?
Yep.
And so, and the art is a lot stronger in a unified genre product, and that's a big thing for me. Is I love unified art, and I feel like that would be difficult. Well, we've dropped the Tiny Frontiers from the title. It's now
saw that.
Monsters Evolved, a Tiny D6 game.
Okay.
Well, the Tiny branding is really nice. We couldn't make the title work in it. It was Tiny Frontiers, Mecha and Monsters Evolved, and that's like too many colons and ands and stuff. So, we just Mecha and Monsters Evolved, and then a Tiny D6 game. And it's a stronger title for it. I think it communicates what the game's about. And people who like Tiny D6 will be able to find it. They'll know what it is. People who don't might fall in love with Tiny D6.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we forgot to mention. If folks are interested in the Tiny D6 mechanics, so do you want to just kind of give a brief, kind of like a 2-second or 2-minute sales pitch as to what the Tiny D6 kind of engine is about?
Absolutely. So Tiny D6 focuses on accessible gameplay. So it's a rules light, easy to teach, easy to learn, easy to run game. The base mechanic is roll 2 6-sided dice. If either dice shows a 5 or a 6, you are successful at the thing you want to do. If none of the dice shows a 5 or a 6, you're not successful. If something grants you disadvantage, that penalizes you, you only roll 1 dice. If something grants you advantage, that gives you an extra level of effort or success, you get to roll 3 dice. Looking for a 5 or 6 on any of those dice. That's it. All attacks do 1 or 2 damage. Characters generally have anywhere from 4 to 10 hit point equivalent level stats, and that's the game. It's super minimalist. It's super streamlined. The goal is to have the rules set, be easy to teach, easy to learn, so you can let it fade out of the way and use it as a quick adjudication system for when you need at the table.
How long have you had the Tiny D6 license? It's 5-6 years?
So we acquired Tiny D6 from Funky Salamander right around the Kickstarter, actually. So about 5 years.
Okay.
Maybe maybe closer to 4.5, give or take. I think we're near the end of 2016, so it would be coming up on 5 years.
Okay. So in that 5 years, what are you most proud of that you've done with? I mean, because this has been a big. That was a big, acquisition for Gallant Knight Games. It's kind of it's kind of brought you.
It is who we are.
Yeah, it's kind of put you on the map. What are you most proud of, that you've accomplished with this Tiny D6 line?
Honestly, I think it's the quality of community we were able to build around Tiny D6. A lot of the players, the people in the community, they're very friendly. They're very welcoming. They love to talk about Tiny D6, about how it's great for experienced players, how it's great for new players. But they're also they want to enjoy games. We manage to foster a community that is focused on our game. That's not its sole focus. I talk about other games in there all the time. They talk about other games in there all the time. We're all people who love games. I'm fortunate enough to be able to build a career out of it. It's a lot of hard work, but I get to do it because of the community, and I get to do it because of their support, and they've been fantastic the whole way. So I think if I had to say anything that kind of keeps my skin in the game, it's that community. It's these people who make every day a great day to wake up and make a game for. But we have been exploring the possibility of offering STLs based on the artwork in Mecha Monsters.
Oh, cool.
Ooh, very cool.
I'm unsure how that will pan out. And we just don't have the capabilities to make actual miniatures, but offering STLs might be a thing we could do. So we're kind of looking into it. That'll depend on funding. We're asking for a lot more than we've had to ask for in the past because of the rising cost of making a game. So we are kind of swinging for the fences here a little bit, which is a lot. So
honestly, anybody who's really been paying attention to the gaming world in the last like 2 years should understand things aren't getting cheaper.
I have no doubt that people understand why we're asking for more, but because we're asking for more, we can only increase our price so much. So we actually just have to net more backers, right? Is what it mathematically boils down to.
Yeah.
Because if I have to ask for 5,000 more, but I can only raise my price $5, that's what the market will bear. I have to make up that difference of more backers, right? Yeah. So there's a lot to kind of get into and work on there. So if you are at all interested in the game, I mean, I'd love it if you would back. I'd love it if you talk about it to your friends. We are swinging for the fences. This is the biggest funding goal we've asked for, I think, on any of our Tiny D6 games.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's a hardcover, full color book.
True. Yes, full color makes a big difference. Yep.
And we want to do a good job, and I pay a great rate to people who write for me, 10 cents a word. It's one of the best rates in the industry. There are people who pay more, but we've paid 10 cents a word since I started Gallant Knight Games. And I pride myself on an ethical wage. And that comes at a cost where we have to ask for more money for our products. So, if you like what we're doing, if you're interested, go to the link below, click to be notified, back it when it goes live, please help us out.
Let me recommend a new backing tier that you can add. It's called the shoot level. It's where you get 2 copies of the game, one for your shelf and one to play.
I have done that in the past, and people complain at me all day long.
What?
See, I love that pledge. I love the fact that
because I'm a collector. I always order.
Yeah.
That's why I always backed Alan's games for the deluxe edition, because you get the bag, you get a hardcover, you get a softcover. Hardcover's my book for my shelf. Softcover goes in the middle of the table.
Right.
Well, I will add a 2 hardcover collect. We're not doing soft covers. We're not doing the faux leathers. It's just the book.
Yeah.
Just the book. Oh, okay.
So I will add a 2 book pledge for you.
Nice. Okay.
I will actually add the super shoot level if you want.
Ooh.
Where it's $1,500, but I'll fly to your house and run it for you.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought it was like super shoot, meaning like we'll deliver soup for you, or you can have Doug shoot.
Soup or shoot.
No, sorry. The super -shoot.
Well, very cool. I'm very excited to see this Kickstarter hit, and we'll be rooting for you. And first, we'll make sure to tell folks all about it once it's live. Alan, if folks want to know more about you and all the things that you do at Gallant Knight Games, where should folks go? Where should they look to?
You can find Gallant Knight Games. We are in retail. You can get them from your local game store. They probably don't just have them on the shelf all the time, but they can order them if they want them. You can find our games on DriveThruRPG under Gallant Knight Games. Our website is www.gallantknightgames.com. You can find us on Twitter at GallantKGames. I'm on Twitter at Alan Bahr, and I have a website, alanbahr.net.
Just remind folks that if you'd like to join us every Monday night, you can join us Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, and we'd love to have you part of our weekly show, and you can ask questions and participate along with all of us and the folks that joined us tonight. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you would be so kind, and make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe, all the YouTube jazz that we're supposed to do here. It really is greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to support us more, you can check us out on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/VictoryConditionGaming. We have all sorts of Patreon perks, and it definitely helps support our show. Thank you so much.